Beautiful day, buddy. We are at the Sebring. We're gonna head to the bridge, see if we can get some photos with the 100 to 500. This is kind of day one that we're out here, so first time here, don't know what to expect, but hoping to get some good, cool pictures. Today I brought the 28, 2.8, and the 100 to 500. All right, guys, so it was a little quick race. We just came here for the tail end of this race. I saw this guy with a Nikon. He had a 400 f2.8. That thing was massive. But I was able to get some pretty cool shots, shooting at like 1/4000th of a second with the electronic shutter. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so 1/4000th of a second with the electronic shutter, and beautiful. I want to get some 120 frames per second slow motion video of them coming around the corner. But yeah, this is gonna be pretty cool. Be able to get some cool shots.
The nights are long, the winds are strong. Feels like the sky is falling, but we carry on. We're side by side. Love is alive. We're chasing the light. Time after time, we will rise up. We will rise together. Time after time, we're survivors. There's no surrender.
I lost my VND filter for the DJI, so we're on auto exposure settings. Hopefully it looks okay. But man, really cool pictures, really good location to take photos. Gia's here, she's been so good, super loud, but she's doing good. Here with little Gia, she loves Florida, she doesn't want to go back. But we're here, the Sebring 12-hour race has concluded, and we got some pretty cool shots. So we're just getting ready to go to the beach. We're going to Siesta Keys Beach, which should be very nice. It's a nice, cool day, nice breeze going. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the kit and some of the settings that I used. Now, I'm not a race photographer by any stretch of the imagination, but what this really comes down to is just knowing your camera and knowing what settings you need for what you're shooting. So it's kind of just like familiarizing yourself with your camera so that you can use it in any circumstance, whether you're doing photojournalism, portraits, like a dynamic sport or race event. It's really just about knowing your camera. So the photos that you're gonna see in this video, they're gonna have the settings attached to them. So you'll be able to see what the settings were. If you guys are a professional in this sort of genre, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Let me know how I could have improved, how things could have been a bit sharper, or whatever the case may be. I'm always up for some constructive criticism. We are right now on our American Airlines flight back to, well, ultimately back to Calgary, Alberta. Right now we're heading to Dallas, Texas from Florida. I finished editing all the photos. Like, I stayed up for 2 nights till like 2 a.m. and I gotta say, guys, the photos are epic. Like, I can't wait to show you guys what I got. But I used 3 lenses. The 28mm f2.8 was kind of like a vlogging lens or B-roll lens. I predominantly used the 100 to 500 4.5 to 7.1 during the daytime. That gave me the most reach, and it was the most versatile at daytime. But as soon as the light started to go down, and even to the point of doing night photography, shooting these super fast cars, that's when I brought out the 85mm f1.2. And with the 85 1.2, I got the coolest, most clean shot ever. It's so funny that the hardest shot to get was one that I got, and it ended up being the best shot I possibly could have gotten. So like I said earlier on, it doesn't matter what genre of photography you're doing. So obviously people who do like wildlife photography, motorsports, or sports photography, or portraits even, there are tricks of the trade that masters in those genres know and that you have to develop. But for the most part, as long as you know your camera and you know how to operate it, You understand your exposure triangle, the shutter speed, the ISO, and the aperture, and you can manipulate those things. It doesn't matter what the genre is. As long as you know your camera, you can be proficient and productive while shooting those genres. All right, so in this case, let's start off with the daytime shots. Obviously, these vehicles are moving super fast, upwards of like 240 miles per hour on the straightaways. So daytime shots, your shutter speed is going to have to be jacked up. All right, so we're back home. We got in last night. Man, we did a flight to Dallas. Layover was maybe like an hour and a half, but our flight was delayed, so we got there with like minutes to spare. And the second leg of the flight back to Calgary, oh my gosh, Gia, she did well overall, but this second leg, oh my goodness, it was crazy. If you guys ever traveled long distances with kids, especially on a plane, man, that thing was giving both Emily and I anxiety. But anyways, we're back home, we're safe, and that's the most important thing. While I was at Sebring, just, wandering around, finding locations to get pictures, I bumped my DJI and I lost my black mist filter that I stacked with a VND filter. So I bought this Nano X series. It's a KNF concept lens filter. It's a black diffusion 1/4 and a variable ND 2 to 32. So I'm going to open that. You guys will be able to see the difference. And then we're going to get back into discussing my experience at the 73rd Sebring 12-hour race. Okay guys, so I just opened the package and this is the black mist and VND filter ND 2 to 32. The reason why this is so much of an upgrade from my last setup was because I stacked the black mist filter and the ND filter. So on some of my videos, you would see like on the edges, you'd see that orange dial, like it was like an orange tinge on the edges of my video. It wasn't really appealing, but I really didn't mind it. This is just so much better because I'm guessing this will probably clean that up. So we're gonna put that on and I'm gonna just adjust my settings quickly. Okay, so I adjusted my settings to manual exposure, like base ISO, 1/50th of a second, and then I just dialed in the VND filter, and there's a bit of a glow. Love it. So this is an upgrade. No more orange fringing around my videos. Thumbs up for that upgrade to the video quality. Okay, so back to the Sebring. I had such a great time, and I definitely want to make this an annual trip. I got some really cool pictures, and as I progressed through the event, the quality of my pictures and the complexity of my pictures improved. And this is important because you always want to challenge yourself. How it started out, I was very overwhelmed about the whole event. I've never been to a race. Just the sounds were just amazing. The cars, we were able to get so close. I had my R3, and on the first day I started out with the 100 to 500. For this event, the 28 2.8 didn't really have much uses other than B-roll and behind the scenes sort of stuff. But it's such a great lens to have because it has such a small footprint. You just throw it in your bag and you don't even know it's there. So for the first day, I used the RF 100 to 500, 4.5 to 7.1, and that lens is an absolute beast. Now, I did have this filter on that lens, and by the end of the event, I decided I was not going to run a filter on that lens. I would just use that lens hood to protect the glass. I would recommend against putting a filter on your lens. Obviously, do what you want to protect your investment, but for me, like, unless it's a high quality filter, I'm not going to use it. And this thing has a pretty big lens hood, so I don't really think I need it. So the first day I was shooting some images. I wasn't really doing any panning shots. Like I said, I was overwhelmed. I just wanted to get some shots, and the cars were so nice. So I was very, very excited about the whole thing. So high shutter speed. I think the minimum that I shot was like 1/1600th of a second, which I didn't really want to stay at. I wanted to stay at minimum of like 1/4000th of a second, and then let the ISO do its thing. Because it was a bright sunny day, I didn't have any concerns about lighting. I didn't have any concerns about having a lack of light. So I knew that my ISO wasn't going to be jacked up. With that shutter speed, even though these vehicles are moving super fast, anywhere from 240 miles per hour on the straightaway, 1/4000th of a second is going to freeze that car. A lot of these pictures that I got on the first day, the cars looked like they were literally standing still on the track. They didn't even look like they were moving, and I thought it was pretty impressive. and it made for some really cool shots. So as you know, with the 100 to 500, it's a variable aperture lens, which means, as I've explained before, as you go through the focal range, the aperture changes. At 100 mil, you're at a minimum aperture of f4.5. You can't go below that. You can go higher if you want, but it's minimum aperture of 4.5. As you go through the focal range all the way to 500, you max out at a minimum of 7.1. So that means that when you're maxed out and fully zoomed out to 500 millimeters, your aperture, the minimum aperture, is 7.1. Now, because there's so much compression that you get with this lens, you still get a background blur, which is awesome. The only downside is that once you lose ambient light, when you lose sunlight, the sun starts to go down. That's when now the ISO has to start compensating, and you have to start kicking up your ISO or slowing down your shutter speed. Now, because this is a dynamic event where you have high speed moving vehicles, you don't want to lower your shutter speed or you're going to get a blurry image. We'll get into panning in a second because that's a special case. But daylight is where this lens flourishes. I think it's a necessity to have one of those wildlife type of lenses to shoot these kind of sports events, because you want to be able to reach out and touch these vehicles. And for me, for example, I didn't have a press pass at all, but sometimes you can circumvent needing a press pass if you have a really nice long telephoto lens. Now, if I was to do it again for the first day, this is what I would have changed. I would have removed my Amazon filter to make sure that I got the cleanest shot, the most unadulterated, unfiltered shot through the professional glass that Canon put on that lens. The second thing I would have done is I would have maxed out my shooting speed, my frames per second. All right, guys, editing Jameel here. I have the Canon R3 in front of me, so I wanted to show you the drive mode that I was using on the first day as opposed to the second day. Typically, I use low-speed continuous unless I'm shooting like action. Then I would do high-speed continuous and high-speed continuous plus. There is a faster mode, which is this one right here. Custom high-speed continuous, where you can shoot raw images with no autofocus. So raw images at a rate of 195 shots per second, which is outrageous, at 50 shot increments. So on the first day, I was using high-speed continuous, which is about 15 images in a second, autofocus included, and raw images. The second day, when I was doing a lot of panning shots, I started using this mode right here, high-speed continuous plus, which is 30 frames in a second. If I was to do it again, I would definitely just forego using the high-speed continuous at 15 frames per second and go with the 30 frames per second. And then additionally, subject to detect was vehicles. That's what I used for this event. It worked great. I had no complaints. Again, guys, epic camera, really cool. And I do not feel the need to upgrade to the R1, to be quite honest. Let's get back to the video. The second day that I went to the Sebring, I decided to challenge myself more, and I knew that I wanted to get some more interesting shots. I wanted to do some panning shots. Now, this is when I maxed out the speed, the shooting speed, frames per second on my R3, because that would give me more chances to actually nail focus when I'm panning. With regards to my settings, for the panning shots, about 95% of the time I was shooting at 1/30th of a second. That was my speed where I'd be panning. My ISO, again, I let it float. I wasn't very concerned about ISO, and I haven't been for quite some time in my photography journey. So guys, I took about 2,000 panning shots, 2,000. And for those of you that know the nature of the beast, I only left with maybe a handful of ones that I thought were sufficient to edit and possibly print. So this is a game of patience. It's a game of trial and error, because essentially what you're doing when you're panning, just say you're panning someone running, it's pretty easy to kind of, track their speed. But when you have these cars that are flying at outrageous speeds, you have to be spot on. And it's so rewarding when you actually hit focus that you just keep on doing it, and time literally flies when you are doing it. Before we get into the evening time shooting, I'll just talk about the culture at the Sebring. There are thousands of people who camp out at the Sebring Raceway for this event. There are trailers and trucks everywhere. There are vintage cars, there are supercars. It's just, if you are into car culture, like, I highly recommend you go. And if you do go, if you can, camp out, because the festivities at night, some strange things happen. I didn't stay all night. I guess I left before it got weird. So one of the pretty neat things that they do is that they have these like sanding races. So they have the actual like sanding tool. They have them in 2 lanes plugged in, and they race them. And these things are pretty fast, but it's a good time. It's a really cool community. And yeah, like I said, very interesting things happen at night at the Sebring Raceway. Before I get into the evening photography, where I feature the 85mm f1.2, and man, this lens is so sharp. This is a masterful lens, and I've gained so much respect for this lens after what I was able to accomplish with it on the night of the Sebring 12-hour race. So during the day, as I was shooting with the 100 to 500, you know, just going around taking some photos, my cousin and his friends, they were doing some steaks on the grill, so I stopped by to get some steaks. Man, this steak was probably some of the best I had. And so they had some buns, so I was gonna make like a steak sandwich. And I got my steak, I got my sandwich, put them together, and I was like, man, this would be pretty good with some hot sauce. So, you know, everyone was nice. I thought that, you know, I'd be showing some Southern hospitality. And I went over to this table, there was a bunch of sauces on the table, and I just asked the guy, he was kind of in my way, so I was just kind of like, hey man, can you pass one of those hot sauces? And so he kind of looks at them, and it didn't occur to me what was about to happen, but he kind of looks at them, and then he selects one, colorful packaging, but I didn't really bother reading it. I just wanted to eat my steak sandwich. He passes it to me. I'm like, is it hot? He's like, no, this one's sweet. Silly, naive me, I fell for this. So me and one of my buddies, we doused the sandwich with this sauce, thinking it was like a sweet sauce. Didn't even think of reading the label. Hint, hint. The label of this pepper was called Hellfire Double Doom. If I had seen that, I would have thought twice, but I didn't. I just kind of took the guy's word for it. I was hungry, and the steak was so good, I just wanted to get into it. So I took my first bite, and immediately the alarm bells went off. Now, I'm not really a hot sauce guy. My dad makes his own pepper, and he can handle heat. His ability to do that is probably in my blood to some degree, and that's probably what saved me from certain death. I was eating this sandwich, and I had my sunglasses on, so I was kind of I looked over at the guys, and they were looking at me from the corner of their eyes to see my reaction. And pride, you know, I couldn't go down like a punk, so I took another bite, eating it. My eyes are watering, involuntarily, my eyes are watering. This thing is hot. I take another bite, mouth is on fire, and these guys are like, this guy is tough. He's like, I've seen guys take like a bit on their finger and they're done for. I eat the whole sandwich. My mouth is on fire. I feel short of breath, but I was able to get it down. My buddy, he only took one bite and he threw up. Like, he was done. He was finished. I kept it down. Stomach kind of settled. Went home. And about 6 hours later, we're back at the track for the evening so we can catch the end of the race. So I'm at a straightaway, and I have the R3 with the 85mm f1.2, no filter obviously. I'm shooting at a combination of 1/30th of a second and sometimes 1/125th of a second. It's actually pretty interesting to see the difference. You get so much more blur when you're shooting at 1/30th versus 1/125th. Now, the photos at 1/125th, they look pretty cool still, but it's just that much more accentuated when you're shooting at a slower shutter speed. So I'm doing some panning shots, getting some pretty good hits, and all of a sudden, my stomach feels like a nuclear bomb went off, and I'm hit with unbearable pain. Like, I cannot even stand up. I feel like my gut is on fire. Like someone put kerosene in my intestines and lit it on fire, and there's nothing I can do. And I'm laying on the floor, literally sprawled out in absolute pain. I wanted to bring the Canon T70 to get some photos at the Sebring, but it got to the point where it's just like too much gear, and I wanted to try to minimize the amount of gear that I had. I was carrying 3 lenses, so like another body and glass would be a bit too much. But they actually advertised this, I think in like the 80s when it came out, to be a camera that you can use for fast moving subjects.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's actually cool.
Oh yeah. Hey, cue that trailer.
Now, photography enters the computer age with the revolutionary new Canon T70. Canon Formula One cameras.
So back to the story. Late at night, I'm trying my panning shots, getting some hits, and then, like I said, like it felt like napalm just blew up in my gut. Like kerosene was just like I drank kerosene, and then someone lit my mouth on fire, and then just fire into my intestines, into my gut, and I was just sprawled out on the floor. Like Emily was like, "What the heck is going on?" Rolling in pain. There's nothing I can do. My cousin was able to get me a Coke. Like I don't know how he got one so fast, but he got me a Coke. He got me water. I downed the Coke and I downed the water, and gradually I started feeling a bit better, and the pain started to subside. And my dad, he was concerned at this time because my dad knows like if I go down, like it's bad. So he's like, "Okay, let's go home. I'm like, "Wait, no, I didn't get the shot yet."
Because I'm back like Brady, I could put you on. I'm way too wavy. Hey, hold on, cut the beat. I got 100 little haters trying to get to me. I got 100 little raps trying to set to me. You know the way that I float on this beat. If I'm not top 3, you lying through your teeth. That's why I'm running it up. I done did like 100 up front. What you mean when I back in the tuck? All my brothers, we keep it a buck. And I'm back in the lane with my dog. I can't lie that we ready for.
All right, guys, so that is the gist of my time at the Sebring. Like I said, I want to make this an annual trip to go out there and to photograph this. This was the 73rd. I know the 75th is going to be huge, so that's going to be awesome. Overall, my message is this. I'm not a motorsports photographer. I'm not a wildlife photographer. There are many genres of photography that I simply am not. But if you can navigate your camera, if you understand your camera, and you understand, most importantly, the exposure triangle, your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO, and how those things affect and manipulate the image coming out of your camera, you can do anything. You can be a jack of all trades. You may not be the master of one, but you are going to be able to dabble in many different types of photography to find your knack. When you know what the shutter speed adjustments do to your subject, to the subject that you're photographing, when you know what the ISO does to your image, like brightening the pixels using synthetic light rather than natural light, when you understand how the aperture can work to create subject separation or add more context to your image, like these things all aid in giving you a better grasp on different styles and types of photography. So hope you guys enjoyed the pictures, hope you guys enjoyed the story, and hope you guys enjoyed the B-roll. I had a great time, and maybe one of these years we'll do a meetup at the Sebring. That'd be awesome. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out milmidstudios.com. That's MILMID studios.com. And if you would like, you could support my channel, you could support my work by picking up one of my photo books that are available on Amazon. I really do appreciate your guys' support. It has been overwhelming. Thank you so much. And remember, most importantly, the best gear is the gear you have, and the best photos are the ones you take. Don't forget to keep on shooting.